Hi guys, if you're watching this video, you likely saw the post in the Facebook group. I see that there's a lot of people asking the same questions over and over. So I thought what I'd do is address all those questions in one long video. Please be sure to go through the entire video. I explain the purpose of the video once we get started. Also, I sent this video out to my email list as well. So please do watch the entire video before you respond with any more questions. Cool, let's jump into it. In today's video, we're basically going to be going over some notes that I provided. The goal of the video is basically just to introduce you to different copywriting concepts, a couple of tactics I've learned along the way. There's no specific order right now. I just want to get you guys up to date with the notes I've made in this document. We'll then discuss on Facebook, possibly in the comments of this video as well, a couple of the lessons you'll be able to implement. So yeah, basically the structure of this video is that I'm just going to be going over the notes that I've written down. It might seem a little bit all over the place for now, but don't worry too much about that. We'll clarify everything. This is basically an opportunity for you to write down the notes that I've taken. So just before we get started, there's a couple things I'd like to clarify. Sorry, let me just get my list out here. Okay, so as we're going through, just do me a favor and note down any questions that arise. If you find that I don't answer those questions by the end of the video, I'd like for you to leave those questions for me in the comments, or you could reach out directly to me on Facebook or on Instagram, just send me a DM. So out of all these notes, basically they're providing a simple step-by-step formula for writing profitable ads regardless of what you sell. Each step will lead into the next, so you don't always need to use a story and you don't always need to use the bullets, each of which are different components of the 5 steps that you'll see will be discussed, but you do need to use the other components. So just to clarify that, there's 5 different steps which we go through in sequence to create successful ads, to sell whatever products that you might be selling, whether that be your own products or that of your competitors. You won't need to use story, which is one of the elements, and you also won't need to use bullets. Before we proceed, there's a couple copywriters that I thought you guys should know about. I often get asked questions as to what books people who'd like to learn copywriting should read, who they should follow. There's a lot of people out there teaching copy who don't really know anything, so you're just wasting your time. They'll be teaching you generic information that doesn't really drive, move the needle when it comes to making more sales or collecting emails, whatever your goal might be with your copywriting. So over here, as you can see, I've created a little list. You can just jot these down. That's Doug, Deanna, David Deitch, Ken McCarthy, John Colton. This is a good one. John Colton's really good at really systemizing the whole copywriting process. Often you'll find that when you're learning copy, it seems very esoteric, which it doesn't really have to be the case. I think people like to make it seem a lot more complicated than it actually is, simply because they don't want to share exactly the tactics that they use to get the results that they've gotten. Mal Martin, Gene Schwartz, Gary Halpert, Gary Bencivenga, known as the best copywriter in the world. He's got a $5,000 course, which I highly recommend you check out if you've got the budget to do so. Scott Haynes, and then this guy whose name I can't pronounce. The beginning section is going to be focusing all on market research. Basically, before we start writing any copy whatsoever, we first need to actually validate that there's a market in need of the solution we're claiming to offer. So let's dive into the video and talk about that now. All right, so let's move into the first part of the video. The first and most important rule is the answers are in your market. Basically, when it comes to copywriting, you aren't looking to convince your market to believe that you have a solution that they weren't otherwise looking for. So you aren't looking to convince them that they have a problem which needs solving via your product. Instead, you're looking to find a market that is looking for a solution to an already existing problem, and then try to understand what it is they already believe about this problem, how they phrase those beliefs, why they would like the problem to be solved, and how they phrase the values involved in wanting to solve that problem, and then basically using the language of the market to then sell them your product. So there's a couple quotes I've got here just to help solidify this first important rule, that the answers are in the market. David Diana, copywriting is not about building a bridge from your product to your market. It's about building a bridge from your market to your product. Like I said, you aren't looking to convince people from your perspective that they have a problem which needs your solution in order to solve. Instead, you're trying to understand their problem, understand the way they think about the problem, the way they speak about the problem, and then use those same words and phrases in order to guide them from their current position to your product. David Deitch, known as the best A-list copywriter, the best A-list copywriters don't discuss tricks and techniques with each other, they discuss the market. Basically, every market, like I've been saying, sees the problems that they have in a different light. So, for example, if you've got a headache, there's a certain way you discuss having a headache. There's certain words used. My head is killing me, for example. It feels like my head's going to explode. All of these different ways of speaking about a problem are unique to the market that experiences the problem itself. Now, there are many different segments of a market. For example, somebody who has a light headache uses different language than somebody who has a migraine. So their need in solving the problem is going to be different, and therefore the way that they speak about the problem is going to be different. So when it comes to really offering solutions to your target market, it's vital that you use the language that they use. There's no point in speaking to somebody who has a mild headache with the language of somebody who's got a migraine. You don't really need to sell them that hard. They aren't really that interested in solving the problem. For example, if you say to somebody who has a mild headache, I bet you your head's killing you. You really need to solve that problem right away, or else you're not going to be able to focus on anything else for the day, which is probably just going to lead to you going home feeling miserable, having a bad night's sleep, etc., etc. They're going to completely disagree with you. They don't have that bad of a headache. It's a mild headache. They'll get over it. At least that's the view that they hold. Jim Camp says, you're always safe in the other person's world, meaning you're always welcome and unlikely to be chased away and ignored when your prospects feel that you don't have ulterior motives or aren't trying to pull them into your world. I.e., you aren't trying to get them to see your product in a certain way so that they buy it. Instead, you want to understand their world and patiently navigate the information that they give you about their world until you naturally end up with them buying a product by having them truly believe that your product is what they need. So as an example here, just a little catchphrase is, when you have weeds in your garden, you don't want a weed killer selling company to tell you about their weed killer. Instead, you want them to tell you about your crabgrass. Nobody cares about your product. Nobody cares about your company. They only care about their problems, their pains and desires. You want to talk about those things, and if you do, you cannot fail. I'm sure you're more than aware that people are more than willing to discuss their problems endlessly, and if they feel like you're willing to listen to them and their problems and that you understand their problems, I guarantee you they're more than willing to listen to the solutions you believe can solve their problems. How do you get into your prospect's world? You do this by asking questions, making observations, and looking to what they're already spending money on. Questions to ask before writing a single word of copy. Don't trust people to provide you with the right answers. Instead, use their answers as a guide, but always validate their answers by observing whether or not answers actually coincide with their real lives. So what this basically means is when you come to do some market research, which you will inevitably have to do in order to see if there is actually a market in need of your solution. In fact, I recommend that before you create your product, you first validate that there is a market, or else, once again, you'll be building a bridge from your world into theirs rather than from their world into yours. So when you ask people what they feel their problems are, the answers that they give you and the sentences that they use to describe their problems might differ heavily from what the sentences that they actually use to discuss their problems when they're speaking about their problems with friends. So for example, let's say you're a boss of a company, right? We're going to look at the same problem from two different perspectives. One is you're the boss of a company speaking to an employee, and one is you're the colleague of an employee, right? We can use the same pain of the headache. So your employee has a headache. When the boss walks over to that employee and says, "How's your head feeling?" the employee, knowing that they could probably get a day's sick leave or something, exacerbates the problem and just exaggerates the problem and says, "Oh, I've got such a killer headache. I don't know if I'm going to be I don't know if I'm going to be able to carry on working today." Whereas if you're the colleague and you say, "How's your head feeling?" they could say, "Oh, it's really not a problem at all. It's actually my headache is gone," knowing that there's no consequences. So you don't want to trust the answers people give you. Instead, you want to see the actions that they take. So we need to validate the actions people take. And when it comes to copywriting, this really comes in the form of seeing what products they've bought and then reviewing their reviews of their product to see why they bought it. What did they say their pain was? What solution did they claim to be looking for? How did the product serve to solve their pain, etc. Here's a couple examples of questions we can ask. What keeps them up at night? There are people in your market that are kept awake at night for reasons that your solution can solve. What are those reasons? What are they afraid of? Top 5 fears listed in order. These are things that they'll admit they are literally scared of. What causes them pain? This is a good one. Physical pain is something that'll drive you to make a purchasing decision more than many other motivators. If you have a massive migraine, once again, you're more prone to try and solve that problem right away. If you find that you've got a random chest pain, you're going to be looking to solve that problem right away. You're going to be booking appointments with doctors because it's causing you physical discomfort. You don't know what the problem is. You want it solved now. And usually physical discomfort is indicative of something that could be more serious than emotional discomfort, for example. What humiliates them? People don't want to feel like idiots for making the wrong buying decisions. So when you understand what humiliates people, you can sort of counteract that in the copy. So for example, they don't want to feel that they're buying just another headache tablet that isn't going to do anything. So if you can prove to them with testimonials, reviews, evidence, it's like science-based literature, that your headache tablet is really going to solve their problem, it'll minimize any chances of them feeling like idiots for buying your product. What makes them angry? Government, their boss. Who are they blaming for their problems? Who are they furious with? What do they worry about most? Their kids, the economy, paying the bills, the quality of their water, their favorite supplement is going to be discontinued on Amazon. This doesn't have to be related to your product. You should, however, still know this, as you might be able to work this information into your copy somehow. So guys, just to clarify at this point, the reason we're trying to figure out as much as we possibly can about who our market is because once we have as much information as we can possibly attain on our market, this is just information we can work into our script or into our copy. It's really beneficial. You'll find that a lot of companies actually jump straight into marketing before they've done the marketing research, before they've actually analyzed who is in need of their product, which leads to them getting far less sales than they'll actually get if they knew who they were speaking to. A big problem, and this will be an example later up in this video, but a big problem that a very famous ad that was selling motorcycle parts to motorcycle owners is that they expected they treated their motorcycle owners as people who had an infinite budget. They were always able to upgrade to the newest motorcycle parts, the newest tires, the newest exhaust, the newest engine parts, etc. But then a company came into the market and they introduced the same products, but sort of from the perspective that the customers already had, showing that, acknowledging the fact that they didn't have an infinite budget. So rather than just saying buy this product because it's the newest best thing, they said buy this product because it's the newest best thing and it's going to last you X amount of time longer than the competitors, proven by XYZ scientific facts, which means you won't have to spend your money on another one of these for X amount of time. So basically positioning their product as a solution that not only will solve their problem, but also knows who they're speaking to. Okay, so let's just continue on with the types of things you want to get to know about your markets. Who are they furious with? What do they worry about most? Their kids, the economy, paying their bills, the quality of their water. I think we've gone over this. What are their values like? What is their most urgent hot button crisis right now? Right now, as they are reading this, what is the crisis in their life? If your product is a solution to the crisis in somebody's life, and you can sort of mention that in your copy, that's a good thing. Who are their enemies? You can stand with them against their enemies in your copy. Is it a passive-aggressive person at work, always taking cheap shots at them, for example? What income brackets are they in? It's hard to sell high-ticket items to people with no money. At the same time, it can be a turn-off to lower the cost or value of your product to try and sell it to people who have lots of money. This also, I suppose, comes down to the branding of your product. As we know, there's many products that cost far less to produce than they charge retail for. This comes down to branding. I mean, you're trying to make your product seem like a high-end product. You don't then want to say, oh, well, look at us, we skimp out on the materials we use, etc., etc. You want to increase the perceived value of your product and make sure that you're charging a high enough price for the product that the market you're after is going to want to buy that. What are their political views? What 3 things frustrate them most each day? What do they want more than anything? Money, peace of mind, love. What religion, if any, are they? Who exactly are the main buyers of this product? You aren't trying to convince them. You aren't trying to convince the cold or lukewarm people who want to talk. You want to talk to the hot people. That basically means that you aren't looking to convince the people in your market who aren't looking to solve their problems to buy your product today. Instead, you're looking to speak directly to the people who are looking to solve their problems and buy your product today. I mean, you got to understand this, guys. If you've done your market research, you've validated that there is a market in need of your solution, that the market is big enough that you can speak to the people who are in pain right now, whom you can help with your solution. You don't need to waste your time trying to convince people then. Instead, you're just finding out what the people who are in pain believe about their problem, what they believe it'll take to solve their problem, and then positioning your product as that exact thing that they are looking for, using the words that they already use. Who wears the pants in the family when it comes to making buying decisions? This is helpful because you've got to understand that when people are making buying decisions, you aren't only convincing them that your product is the solution, but once they've made that buying decision, they also have to use the information that you provided them as the proof or their validating argument to convince the person in their house who actually makes the buying decisions as to why that decision was the correct decision to make. So if you're selling Tupperware to a stay-at-home mom, and let's say her husband is usually the person who wears the pants, so to say, in the family and makes the buying decisions, if that stay-at-home mom already has plenty of Tupperware, she really has to now convince her husband as to why she bought even more Tupperware. Right, so when you can provide them, your prospects, with that information already, by positioning your product as a better solution to your competitors, and we'll get into how you do that later on in this video, it really helps make the buying decision a lot easier. So let's go over a couple more questions, or I suppose a couple more segments of information that you want to attain on your market. How old is your customer? What do they do for work? What's their education level? Are they in debt? By how much? What do they feel guilty about? Where are they located? Do they own a home or rent? What are the biggest mistakes these prospects are making when your product can help them stop making? What is the number one most urgent hot button problem they are attempting to solve? What feelings are they experiencing when they're doing a Google search or looking through whatever media you use? How do you want the visitor to feel when they arrive on your site or arrive at your sales letter? What do they secretly, ardently fantasize about having most in life? What kind of slang do they use in everyday conversation? Who else is successfully selling them something similar to them, and how, or similar to your product, and how? What books are they reading? What movies are they watching? What TV shows do they view each week? Do they crave recognition from anyone? What do they do for fun? So what they actually do for fun, not what they say they do for fun. People say they hike for fun when they only hike once per year, so they clearly do something else for fun. A lot of this information can seem like it's really irrelevant, but these are very important questions that you want to try and answer. The more you can know about your customer, the more clear of an avatar you can create. We'll get into customer avatars later, but this will really help you position your product. And at the end of the day, guys, if you're going to be spending a lot of money on your advertising, whether that's YouTube ads or Google advertising or Facebook advertising, when you know exactly who you're speaking to, you're guaranteeing, in a sense, that you aren't wasting your money. Instead, you're testing your marketing story, your marketing message into different segments of the market, knowing exactly what they want. What do they complain about to their friends over a drink? What roles do they play in life? Are they a boss, a parent, a lover, a spouse? Do they want revenge on anyone, and why would they want revenge? Are these customers looking to be sold by the time they find you, or will they be looking for more information? So another thing we'll be getting into later on is a customer's stage of awareness, as well as their level of sophistication. And basically this just breaks down to the point that everybody who's ever going to need your solution will go through different stages of awareness. Those main stages mainly being pain aware, problem aware, solution aware, competitor aware, and each one of those stages refers to the awareness at which your prospect is aware of their problem. So there's people who aren't aware of the fact that they have a problem at all. And those people need completely different messaging than people who are fully aware of the problem that they have, who are fully aware of your solution, your competitor's solution, who understand the benefits of your product, as well as that of your competitors. Each stage of awareness will require different messaging. So it's good to know if they're aware of different products and what stage of awareness they're at. How to get the answers to the questions above. So basically, you can talk to the market. If you know anybody who happens to be going through the problem your solution can solve, or might have a contact that's going through the problem your solution can solve, you want to have a conversation with them where you get this information from them. Granted, you might not be able to get all of this information at once. That's okay. Get as much as you can. If you can incentivize somebody for going through this process with you, perhaps if your client has gone through these problems before, you can sit with your client, figure out where they were when they were creating the solution, why they created the solution, what was their headspace like in comparison to their headspace now after having implemented the solution in their life. You can also go online and see where your market is hanging out and where they discuss these problems openly with like-minded people. For example, you could go to different blogs. There's plenty of blogs online you could find, guys, that discuss. I guarantee you'll find a blog discussing your product. You go onto Reddit, for example, you go to different forums. This is a ninja trick that not many people know about, but Amazon reviews are really great. Just go onto Amazon and find products in your niche or products that solve the same problem as you, and take a look at the reviews. You don't really want to see the 3 or 4 star reviews. You really want to see the reviews that are praising the products and the reviews that are really slamming the products, because those are going to show you a wide spectrum of what people are really happy about with the solution, and what people really hated, what they were dissatisfied about with the solution. This will show you sort of the good things to implement in your copy, so you'll know that the market is looking for feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4, and they were very happy that they got those features. You then want to make sure that if your product also offers those features, that you make the market aware of the fact that your product offers those features. And then when you're looking at the negative reviews, you could then make sure that you avoid your product causing any of those perspectives to be held on itself. If you guys don't understand that, just leave a comment and I can elaborate further. And once again, I suppose this is a good time throughout the video to just remind you guys, please, as I'm going through this, none of this is supposed to be crystal clear yet. This whole segment of the video right now is just basically describing how you can better get to understand your market. And I've really created an elaborate list of questions that you can sort of find the answers to, as well as right now going through the methods of how to go about attaining the answers to those questions. Throughout the videos that I produce on the channel, everything will become far more clear. So the ads that have sold them on related products, you can take a look at those ads to see how they position the product as a solution to your market's needs, sort of see what they're claiming the benefits of their products are, what pains they solve in the market, especially if you know that it's a successful ad campaign. Those are really good for copying in a sense, or at least taking inspiration from. You can run surveys. There's a guy by the name of Ryan Levesque who is the master of running surveys. If you can get his online course, he teaches you how to run surveys to different markets so that you can basically gather all the language you need and all the information you need in your market's language, which you can then use in your copy. I highly recommend you guys go about doing this process. I might make a video on how to do this later on, though we won't be covering this topic in this video. Claritas report, this is when you have more than 10,000 paying customers. So if you guys are doing this, I'll make another video breaking it down. That's just a high level overview right now. You'll know you've done enough market research when you can write the bulk of an ad without even seeing the product. So basically knowing what a market's pain is, knowing the solutions that they're looking for, and then without even having the actual product, and being able to write something that you believe would convince them to buy that imaginary product. If you then can essentially, if you can craft copy in such a way that you convince a market that you can solve their problem, having understood the problems that they have, the frustrations that they've gone through, how they identify with the problem, the significance that they see the problem having as an effect on their life, if you can then craft an imaginary product that you believe can solve their problems via copy, and then actually have a product that you created that does the very things you claim your imaginary product can do, that's the end goal here, right? So when you're going through this market process, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out, how can I say, so what do I need to say, and how do I need to say it in order to convince a market that's going through a specific problem that I can solve their problem via my product, my solution, my service. So that's what we're trying to do with the copy. Once you've done that, you can then figure out, okay, what does my product need to be, right? So product research. This is mainly our competitor research here. You want to know your product, your service better than anybody else. You want to know your competitor services better than they understand it themselves, just to really understand where the gaps are in the market. Gene Schwartz vocabulary method. Basically, this just means you want to go through the product 10 times. If you're selling a digital course, you want to go through that course 10 times to the point that you understand it back to front, that you are now part of the market. You want to be able to speak with the vocabulary that the market would use when speaking about that product or that problem. Read Amazon testimonials for hidden benefits. Talk to the product creator or inventor and salesman if applicable, and record it. Get them telling stories. Oftentimes when you speak to a product creator or salesman, they'll actually enlighten you as to a lot of the objections that your markets have, or that they found your market to have, a lot of ideas that you otherwise wouldn't have thought of. Because guys, you've got to understand that somebody who's created a product, or a salesman that's been trying to sell the product for quite some time, has invested more time than you have into understanding the product and the market, and overcoming the market's objections to buying the product. So sitting down with the product creator or salesman could really help you out. Studying competitor ads and finding their benefits and hooks. Read magazines, books, and websites related to the market and the product. Google the product creator and listen to interviews they've done. Read articles they've written. Make a long list of claims, story ideas, and anything that you can use for credibility or proof. This will be the foundation. This will be 20 plus pages. So as you're doing your market research, you want to understand what it is you need to claim your product is capable of doing, the benefits it is able to offer your prospective markets, the features that your product has, and you just want to jot down every single idea. So absolutely every single idea you could find on how to position your product in a positive light to your market, write that idea down. We don't have to use it now, but we want to get it on paper. And then plug everything into the 5-step system we'll go through below. So just as a quick recap, that's it for this segment of the video. We'll get into the next segment next. Just to recap what we're doing here, guys, is we have a market, and I believe there is another video on the channel which you can watch. It's a much quicker video that sort of breaks down the components involved in a business to consumer relationship, whether that's business to business or business to consumer. In fact, basically, if anybody needs to solve a problem in their life and they don't have the solution themselves, that sort of falls into a system that's explained in that video quite nicely. what we're trying to do in this segment of the video is understand the hero of our story, understand our market, everything that they think about themselves, their problem, everything they think about your competitor solutions that they've gone through, why they bought the competitor solution, etc. Once you've done that part, we'll then move on to the next segment, which we'll be covering now. So we're now going to be discussing the 5 steps of copywriting. The first one being the headline. This is really important as it serves to capture the interest of your prospects. So let's get into that. Microphone in. So in this section of the video, we're going to be talking about the step 1 of the 5 steps needed to write our ad for our copy. In this step, we're going to be discussing the headline. This is the most important and valuable piece of real estate in our ads. According to David Ogilvy, which is a very well-renowned copywriter, the headline is 80% of the power of your ad. And as we'll soon learn, the only job of your headline is to get your reader to read the next sentence. You can sort of see all of copy in this same light. Every single line the prospect reads should cause them to want to read the next line, whilst simultaneously, and we'll learn this throughout the lessons on this channel, while simultaneously also handling their objections, increasing their desire to buy your product, and ultimately providing them with all the beliefs that they need, as well as proof in order to take your next desired step, which ultimately leads in them purchasing your product. Cool, so once again, we're going to go through a couple notes here with regards to the headline. And once again, step 1 of 5 in creating your perfect ad copy. The secret of the knock knocks. You want to see your headline as the only sentence you get to... Sorry, let me start that again. You want to see your headline as the only sentence you get to say to someone as a door-to-door salesman, and you need to say something that gets their attention and gets them to pull you inside to find out more. Okay. Sorry, there was a mistake in this. That's why I read it incorrectly. But basically, imagine you're a door-to-door salesman. You've knocked on somebody's door to sell them a product, and you only have one sentence to get them to be interested in what you have to say next. If you put yourself in that situation, you sort of understand the seriousness, the weight of importance that you give to the sentence. You really need to intrigue them, you need to grab their interest. And as we'll speak about in later videos, we can use sort of copywriting templates such as AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, which will break down the different segments of your copy. So imagine there's a person being chased by a bunch of wolves. What would you have to say to that person in order to get their attention? Your headline needs to be as impactful as that sentence. You guys really need to understand the importance of the sentence here. So imagine how quickly you would give your attention to someone if all of a sudden, while walking in the park, you heard someone rack a shotgun next to your ear. You'd immediately stop and give all of your attention to that situation. That's what your headline needs to be. It needs to grab their attention, demand their attention. They need to focus on what you're saying, and they need to see what comes next. Below, I've given you 11 types of proven headlines. There are more headlines as you'll continue to learn your copywriting journey. This is just the introductory level over here. So we're going to be discussing quick 11 types of proven headlines. The proof headline, this is from Gary Bensavenga, the most well-known, famous, and some say best copywriter in the world. Proof is the rarest form of persuasion. When you can provide proof to anybody in your headline, they tend to believe your claims more. So join proof to your promise and watch response soar. E.g., world's leading military instructor declassifies the secret supplement used by Navy SEALs to battle injury, body fat, and cardiovascular health problems. If you had to just say, secret supplement used by Navy SEALs to battle pain, injury, body fat, and cardiovascular health problems, that would be a claim without any proof. But simply adding on an individual of authority, even though you've not provided any proof that this individual is the world's leading military instructor, you just claimed that the world's leading military instructor is providing this secret. All of a sudden there's an element of proof involved in that headline, and people tend to believe it more. So anyone can just say supplement battles pain, injury, body fat, cardiovascular health problems, but no one can add the elements of authority to claim the SEALs and the military instructor, which makes their claim seem true. That's headline 1. Headline 2, the market-oriented headline. Use this one when in doubt. You don't have to make a claim or state a benefit. Simply talk to the market's pains, fears, insecurities, and desires. Example, warning. Do not read this if you have moral, ethical, or religious reasons against hurting or even killing someone who violently attacks you, your wife, or your kids. So when you understand your market through doing the market analysis, just go to a segment in the video, we've already covered that. In doing a market analysis, you understand the values people already have. When you can use headlines that talk to the market's pains, fears, insecurities, desires, values, anything that they basically identify with personally, and state that this copy is basically speaking specifically to people who believe in those things, then they'll identify more with your headline and tend to read more. The emotion headline. Do not have to make a claim or benefit. They simply talk about the strongest emotion your target has related to what you sell. For example, warning, do not read this unless you are frustrated as hell with your golf swing. So once again, showing your marketer that you understand them, which you do from doing your market research. You understand that they're frustrated about what? Frustrated about having a bad golf swing. So you can use that as a headline. The next headline is the offer headline. This is the most straightforward headline. You just state the most irresistible offer you can think of. Works only on people who already want what you're selling. Free fuel for a year with purchase of your new car today only. So obviously, if somebody has just purchased a new vehicle, something that they will inevitably need is fuel. So you can entice people who are interested in buying a vehicle by offering them the next thing that they will need after that vehicle, which is fuel. So basically, to quickly summarize that, if you can offer people the subsequent need that they will need to have solved after having solved their current problem, you can entice them to buy your product versus a competitor's product. The next headline is the contrast headline. Contrasting ideas gets into people's psychology. It taps into your prospect's curiosity by immediately grabbing their attention if it's done correctly. Beat the races by picking the losers. That's a contrasting headline because you wouldn't think that you could win. You could win if you were to gamble at the horse race by picking the losing horses. So immediately it has intrigue involved, grabs their attention. How to lose weight by eating more of these fatty foods. There's another contrasting headline because one would assume that you should eat less fatty foods if you'd like to lose weight. So people naturally curious as to what it is you're going to have to say. The tabloid headline. Tabloids get ridiculously high readership due to their headlines. Simple as sensational twist. Simply add a sensational twist to your claims. Let me just correct that. Example, amazing secret discovered by one-legged golfer adds 50 yards to your drives, eliminates hooks and slices, and can slash up to 10 strokes from your game almost overnight. As you can see, it's just a sensational claim. So not only are you going to be able to add 50 yards to your drives, it also eliminates hooks and slices and can slash up to 10 strokes off your game almost overnight. On top of that, all of this is taught by a one-legged golfer. So it sounds too good to be true, as do majority of the headlines used on magazines. The curiosity headline. The curiosity is the number one most powerful tool in copywriting. Curiosity is even more powerful than self-interest in advertising. In fact, you could actually see many situations where in reality curiosity overrides self-interest. For example, you watched plenty of horror movies and you can see how this would hold true in everyday psychology. If you hear noise at night in your house, maybe a broken window, in a horror movie you see them going towards the noise rather than locking the door, phoning the police. So it's the curiosity of what caused the noise. They want to find out what's there, even though they have a deep sense that it might be dangerous. Hence the point here, curiosity is even more powerful than self-interest. The reason these work is because there's an implied mechanism at play, meaning that the headline implies there's a way to do something and we need to know how that works. What to never eat on an airplane naturally just grabs the curiosity. Well, I'm planning on being on an airplane in my life. What should I never eat? That's interesting. Bills, it's okay to pay late. I pay bills. I don't have to pay them all. Tell me about that. The straight benefit headline. Just come out and state the big benefits in the headline. Works especially well if the benefit solves a strong and urgent problem. For example, get up to 12 miles more per gallon from your car. The question headline. It's neurologically impossible for someone to ignore a question that's of interest to them. Removes any otherwise hypiness from claims. They don't look like advertising. Which of these health problems do you want to beat? So basically, if you want to position your claims in the form of a question, you can do so. It more effectively gets past the BS barrier, because it doesn't seem like you're making a claim, but rather asking a question which insinuates or implies that your product can achieve certain results. The objection headline. Counter the best objection to your product right in the headline. This builds belief and credibility from the start of your copy, but it can be difficult for even skeptics to ignore. You can write them word for word from a prospect's objection. For example, did the golf guard arrive, or is this a complete scam? Let's rather phrase this differently. Has the golf guard arrived, or is this a complete scam? That grabs your interest because it positions you almost as a skeptic to the claim that you are making itself. The combine and conquer headline. Mix and match the 10 headlines above for the best results. For example, when doctors have headaches, what do? So that's curiosity. It's also got authority in there. And intrigue. An open letter to readers of Black Belt magazine who are fed up with the hype surrounding the seemingly endless string of Fighter of the Month programs. How to live to be 110 and still remember where you left your car keys. Things to remember about your headlines. As long as you stay in the market world, you can't really screw your headlines up. Some of the highest pulling ads of all time didn't even have a headline. This is not an exhaustive list of headline templates, so you can find many more, and I will be putting more on this channel, but for now I'm just, as I said, trying to get you guys introduced to many different concepts that we'll be covering. This is all a bird's eye view of copy. This is giving you a taste of what there is to learn. I'll be making this far more clear and far more in depth. The reason I'm making these videos is quite simply just to answer many different questions in one. I often get asked, what's the first step of copywriting? Why should I be putting headlines in my copy? What types of headlines do I get? What are the different elements involved in good headlines? So this video is really just serving to answer a bunch of different questions I'm getting. In future videos, I will really be breaking down the process and making it far more systematic and easy for you to follow in a step-by-step, clear and concise manner, where you understand exactly why it is you're doing what you're doing each step of the way, and sort of taking the confusion out of copy. I understand right now you guys are probably more confused about copy than when you began, but this is just about having you see the different elements at play. So things to remember about headlines. As long as you stay in your market's world, you can't really screw your headlines up. Some of the highest pulling ads of all time didn't even have headlines. Headline writers to study. Cosmo magazine covers. This is really an insider trick over here. If you just Google magazine covers, it'll show you plenty of different magazine covers where you can get inspiration for headlines which you can use. This is really a gold mine. If you ever have a writer's block, give this one a try. Mal Martin, Gary Halpert, Gary Bensavenga, John Carlton, any high-level direct mail copywriters. Sorry guys, I'm a bit tired at the moment. And see hardtofindads.com. So that's it for this section of the video. It's all been about the headlines, and then now we'll move on to the next section. So in this section of the video, we're going to be discussing the second step of our copywriting. The second step of this is the opening paragraph, which really sets the foundation for the rest of the copy. This is what helps the viewer or your reader, your prospect, understand the topic that's going to be discussed. So in this section of the video, we're going to be discussing the second most important part of your copy, which is the opening paragraph. Now this is step 2 of 5. This is basically where you're going to be opening up the rest of your copy. So let's just go through the points here. We'll get through it more clearly. So as I said, this is the second most important part of your ad. If you get this right, it gets your reader settled in and ready to read the rest of the ad. Its purpose is to keep the reader's attention focused. If you screw this up, they won't read the ad. We'll be providing some more sales letter openers which work well because mostly curiosity based, user friendly and easy to adapt. They don't sound salesy, not an exhaustive list, but we'll put some twist and play with them however you want. So basically there's 12 persuasive openers which you can use in your copy. At least just 12 that we'll be focusing on now. You obviously get many more ways of opening up your copy. But once again, this is just to serve as a bird's eye view of the different elements involved in copy. So the let me tell you a story opener. This is super simple, crystal clear, gets to the point. You simply start off after your headline, you start off with the opener of let me tell you a story, and then you continue to tell them a quick story that brings up the relevance of your solution. The if-then opener. This is used by the best copywriter alive. It has built-in belief due to the qualifier if. So So the word if qualifies the statement that follows it, which removes any sense of hype from the statement or claim you make. This can also be used to qualify people as to whether or not they should take the desired action you want them to take. For example, if you'd like to quickly double your sales using nothing but free Facebook posts, then this letter will show you how. So if you were to just title or begin your paragraph by saying, quickly double your sales using nothing but free Facebook posts, that wouldn't really sound believable. But simply because you've started the sentence with the word if, sort of like you're qualifying them, if you'd like to do the impossible thing, then you should carry on reading. Somehow this works around, it's like a workaround. It immediately jumps over skepticism. It's quite crazy how that works. So if you'd like to do the thing that sounds almost impossible, then this is for you. Okay, great. Well, I would like to do that. The if then with proof, as we discussed in the headline video, proof is the rarest element in marketing, thus most valued by customers, leads, and prospects. If you'd like to know a secret way to make, for example, if you'd like to know a secret way to make yourself near invincible in a fight, then here's how ancient gladiators and samurai did it, and why you can do the same thing today. So once again, the proof is just adding elements of authority, which are the ancient gladiators and samurais. Basically, we're insinuating that if it was good enough for ancient samurai and ancient gladiators, and they could make themselves near invincible in a fight, then we can too, and we can do it today. So while making the notes, I just wrote down that proof can simply just be claiming that a tactic, method, or system/information can be used by other figures which your readers can identify for themselves, almost like archetypes, the warrior in this case. And the higher the authority of these figures, the better the proof. So just to clarify, there are many different archetypes in life. If you don't know what an archetype is, just quickly search it in Google. A king, a queen, a princess, a burglar, a troublemaker. All of these are just different archetypes. When somebody behaves in a certain way, you say this person is behaving like A, and then that would be an archetype of whatever. So you can use archetypes as elements of proof. In this case, it happened to be the archetype of the warrior. So you can then use these archetypes as senses of authority, which then give your statement proof. So let's move on to the next one, candor. This is brutally honest and inspires trust. Owner Shackleton classified ad. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, safe return, doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. So basically, you're just going to be using absolute brutal honesty. You're not going to be sugarcoating anything. And that example ad there actually came from an ad very long ago for an arduous journey, or hazardous journey, it states. And rather than saying, looking for workers to go on a very dangerous journey, please understand that its chances of survival are very low. Instead, it positioned the hazardous journey as something that anybody who joined would leave with massive recognition and in case of success. Admitting flaws creates instant belief. My name is Betty Adams, and the first thing you should know about me is I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert on nutrition, I never went to college, and I don't have a degree in anything. In fact, the only thing I consider myself an expert about is ... Once again, you're just admitting to your flaws, even though you're going to be claiming something in a field that you might not have any authority or any specialization in. Admitting that up front is a sign of trust. Sensationalist. Based on sensational tabloid writing combined with the let me tell you a story opener. For example, let me tell you a bizarre story about a man who got arrested due to his prostate problems. Once again, sounds too good to be true. Why would somebody be arrested for prostate problems? but nonetheless has intrigue involved and works great as a initial paragraph opener. The next paragraph opener template is ask a question. It's neurologically impossible to ignore. Doesn't sound as hypey or sales pitch. Did you know that the long-term performance of baseball cards beats the pants off of stock, treasury bills, and rare coins? So once again, you're making a claim, but it's positioned as a question, and it's impossible to ignore simply because it requires a response. Do you know? This is a variation on the question opener used by the best copywriter ever. It has built-in must-read curiosity if done correctly. Did you know that you should never give your dog a bone, or let him chew on a tennis ball, or allow him so much as to walk on your driveway? It's true. In fact, any one of these innocent little activities ... can seriously injure, hurt, or even kill your pet. Take dog bone, for example. ... So you've just got to know what it is that he's going to get to. Almost builds upon that contrast from the headline template mentioned in the headline video. So not giving your bone giving your bone a dog is a commonly held belief to be like it's a good thing, it's a treat for your dog. Whereas giving a bone to a dog could also be seen as a bad thing if you have the information he's going to provide. So now you have to know what the information is. Make sure you're asking them questions which they don't know the answer to, or make sure you're making a statement they didn't already know. Example, don't give your dog a bone is information that is opposite to what they already knew. Once again, contrasting. The bite-sized opener, attention span friendly, good for jolting people's attention. Picture this. I was a total skeptic. So sort of sets up the rest of the sentence. Or opening paragraph, rather. Would you take advice from? Ask if they would take advice from someone they wouldn't normally take advice from, or someone they would normally avoid. This gets into the person's psychology. The more outrageous and dramatic, the better. Would you take investment advice from a drug dealer? Excuse me. Would you take investment advice from a drug dealer? Sounds like a silly question, doesn't it? Well, don't make up your mind too quickly. I've got a true story to tell you that sounds like something right out of The Godfather. You could just say, would you take investment advice from a homeless man? I did, and the results will blow your mind. But I'll get to that in a minute. Is another interesting way of phrasing it. So the please take a moment paragraph opener. So sometimes the best way to get someone to read is to ask them to read. This causes you to stick out because nobody does it. Think about it. When's the last time somebody just simply said in a headline, please read this? So make sure what you ask them to read sounds interesting. Please take a moment, for example, please take a moment to look at the paragraph I'm sending you with this letter. The next opener, mock the experts. People like seeing snooty experts mocked. Contrarian advice is inherently interesting. For example, the experts say that individual investors like you and me are motivated by only two emotions, fear and greed. So this headline works particularly well because it aligns the writer with the viewer and sort of pits them against the experts by claiming that the experts believe them to be simple-minded individuals, which they disagree with, obviously. Who thinks that they're simple-minded besides simple-minded people? When you were opener. Used in one of the most successful ads in history, easily adapted to just about anything. When you were young, a health nut was someone who sprinkled wheat germ on his cornflakes. In those days, your choice of medical care was pretty limited. You could pick Dr. Smith or Dr. Cohen's, and neither of them suspect that vitamin C was good for anything but curing scurvy. So it's a good way of basically lining up the topic that you're going to be discussing next. Yes, so let's just get to the closing points here. More sales letter opening fodder. Adapt clickbait articles that grab attention. It's very good if you're looking for more examples or different ways of adapting the templates mentioned so far. Look at clickbait articles that have been successful. You can simply search this in Google or use a tool like BuzzSumo. Go onto Facebook, join some groups, and without a doubt, you'll definitely see some hypey titles being shared. If it works on you, it'll probably work on others. Meaning, take note of when you find yourself reading copy. When do you find yourself all of a sudden going down a rabbit hole, reading pages of copy that you weren't expecting to have read, that you had no intention of reading? And ask yourself why that is. Analyze the copy you read. Don't just be a passive learner, be an engaged learner. So modify and adapt, don't copy and paste. Guys, you don't want to steal copy. That's very important. When you steal copy, you get in a lot of trouble. You want to adapt copy, you want to take inspiration from copy. When you understand the different elements at play and how they interlink with one another, you can get inspiration from the way that people use copy effectively. I don't expect you at this point to understand copy at all. Like I've said a couple times, I just want you to be aware of the different elements. So I'm discussing the different elements in these videos, giving you a couple different examples, showing you how the different examples work, a couple use cases, but that's it. Don't expect to know copy after this. This is just making you aware. It's making you aware of the industry. All right. So finally, you want to make these openers your own. So that comes back to adapting the things that you see other copywriters using. When you find an intriguing headline, analyze it, see what it is that they're doing. When you find successful copy, compare it to copy that you've recently found that for some reason got your attention, and also ask yourself, how could you make this copy even better? What other elements of proof could you put in? Is it lacking a sense of authority? Is it lacking curiosity? When you can build all of these in whilst at the same time driving your viewers' attention to the next paragraph, that's when you're winning, guys. So that's it for this section. Yeah,